Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe brought to you by Design Systems House. I'm your host, Danny D'Amato, and today we're going to be doing an Undefined retro. But before we talk about Undefined and the retrospective of it, I have a couple of announcements that are specific actually to Wireframe. So this week, actually, we're going to have a show every single day this week. So a lot of people have actually asked about, oh my God, it's like weekdays. So you do the show like every single day during the week. And the answer is no, as you probably already know. I only do the show when I have the schedule to do the show. And more specifically, if there's an actual news item, that's when I'm like more apt to scheduling a particular show, or certainly if I have someone come on the show as a guest. And this particular week is, well, really busy with guests. Tomorrow, we're going to have Caroline Horn, who is Design System Manager over at Ramp, on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about craft. And then on Thursday, we're going to have Michael Warren. He's going to come on the show, talk about web components and some of the different things that he's been doing with that and what he's been seeing out there about this stuff. And then just recently, I actually was able to get Dan Abramoff booked to talk about the @Proto protocol. Which is the thing that's kind of behind Blue Sky and a couple of other things that are going out in the space in the web today. You might know Dan from basically being a huge maintainer of React for many years. So yeah, we have 3 guests this week, which is wild. So excited to talk to these folks about some of the areas of their expertise, of course. And of course, to have you potentially join in on the chat and maybe ask some questions to them on the show, which would be really cool. So those are the Wireframe kind of updates for this week. So obviously stay tuned for all of that going down. Additionally, other things that are, of course, important too. I'll talk about, there's the book. Here's the book. Yes, go ahead and get the book, Mise en Mode. I realized actually just the other day, the person who wrote the forward, Louis from Figma, who's the name down here, he reached out to me. He's like, hey, how's it going with the book? I said, oh, did I not tell you that it was released? So I completely, I guess, missed the boat for telling him it was released. So I apologize, Louis, for not reaching back out. It has been a whirlwind with the book, and especially releasing the digital version so soon afterwards, because I didn't realize that my publisher wouldn't provide international support through publishing immediately. So I had to, kind of push the worldwide distribution a little bit faster. And then for other people who are looking for the book elsewhere, I need to do digital really fast. So, yeah, a little bit more of a whirlwind than I really wanted, but I'm glad that that's behind me. And now Undefined is here, or was here. It was last night. So tonight, or for the show, I want to kind of go and do a little bit of a retro about what went on last night, and kind of talk about some of the good things, some of the bad things. In fact, my wife and I are going to have a proper retro that basically like outlines all the little items and details, some point this week to just kind of improve some things. But I've already actually made a couple of adjustments based on what I saw last night and some of the feedback that I got last night. So I'm going to talk about as much as I can about what happened leading up to the event, and of course the event and since. So let's talk about leading up to the event. So leading up to the event, as you might know, the Undefined game platform is a vibe-coded platform generally, and that's mostly because I'm unfamiliar with databasing and real-time messaging and all the kind of stuff, and that would have taken me a really long time to learn properly and to do it, over this time. And yes, it took me 6 months to build this. but because there's all these little facets of things of improvements that I wanted to include in this tool, that in and of itself took a long time. So in all of that time, I have lots of different tests that were baked in to like make sure that everything was working. Plus, my wife and I had tried to use several different devices to make sure that this was working, and tried out all of the games. Actually, even the night before, we tried out all the games to see if they were working. The caveat there, of course, is that the night before, because I was overconfident that we've tested on lots of different devices, and I did load tests with lots of different like bots effectively. I was under the impression that, oh, okay, well, as long as the games are letting me progress the whole way, it'll be fine. That was not the case necessarily last night. We'll get into that. But ultimately, we did test the games. I did try to curate exactly what games that I wanted to kind of prioritize for the night, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But additionally, leading up to the event, there were certain areas where I needed to kind of hand off responsibility, which I'm really bad at. And as you probably can tell from running a live show by myself, it's really hard to kind of give up responsibility to other folks for me. So this is one of those areas where I'm like, okay, I have to like, kind of relinquish control. So in two of these areas where I had to do that, which was one was catering and the other one was videography, there were some significant hiccups. Let's talk about the videography first before I get into the catering. So videography, I reached out to a good friend of mine. Actually, he was my TA when I was teaching at NYIT, and he was there last night, in fact. And you would think he was there last night to work, and that wasn't necessarily what happened. So what happened was I had him scheduled to come in to do videography for me, and everything was going according to plan. I checked it in with him, a couple weeks before, and of course the day before. In fact, somewhere around the afternoon, and I was like, "Okay, we set." He goes, "Yeah, we're all set." Around a little after dinner time Sunday, he sent me a message saying, "Hey, there's some car trouble, me coming back home from Maryland. I don't know, what's up with the car, but I might not make it on Monday." And I'm like, oh my God. Like, the thing here is that because I've had such difficulty trying to explain what this event is, I was really relying on the videography to capture what's going on so that I don't need to try to explain it all the time, especially in words or even on this particular show. It means so much more when you capture it in video and then are able to share that video for people to like know what this event is all about. So I was definitely like putting a lot of emphasis on the videography. So I was like, all right, well, I need to do something about this, right? So I immediately first I asked him if he was able to even just like take a train back up and when whatever. But um, what I ended up doing was looking on the internet for a service that could kind of basically do next day videography, so to speak. I found a service called Shoot Day, which actually was a very reasonable price thing. And in fact, in the package, they actually can include or do include a 60-second kind of sizzle, so to speak, of the or kind of summary of the event in videography form. You could provide media assets and other things like that they can incorporate, which is like really great because I was going to just take the footage that my friend was going to give me and then just kind of make it by myself on my spare time, which what spare time do I actually have? So I really actually do appreciate this particular service, and I might even consider using them in the future for other events because admittedly the cost is very reasonable. Anyway, my friend got back to me about the update and basically said, hey, it looks like actually everything's going to work out. And I said, well, yeah, I would just kind of like put in a deposit down for this new service that's going to help me out here. So he says, that's so cool. No problem. Can I come anyway? So he was there last night and I had him come in, and I had him come in for free. I'll say in particular, just because he's not in tech. He was just coming in there, and again, one of the things that I had in mind there was just in case the event videography wasn't great, which I haven't seen yet, then I could certainly trust him to understand how the event operates and get a vibe already, so that when I need to have a replacement come in, he's already aware of how the event works and can provide a lot of good coverage from all of that. So that was a strategic measure of allowing him to come in for free. Plus, again, he didn't have to, but he decided he wanted to. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well toward the end of the retro, because I've considered the possibility of letting people in at reduced fare also. But ultimately, yes, that was one of the things that was giving me a serious anxiety because, again, there was a lot of importance behind the videography for me. Of course, worst case scenario, I probably would have tried to have Jen capture video. She did take a couple of photos that I'm going to post up eventually, but yeah. So videography, I think, went off successfully. Yet to be determined, of course. Once I do get some stuff back from them and review it, and hopefully get something good, then it'll be on the website. It'll be at undefined.ds.house. All right, so that was the first piece of anxiety. The second piece of anxiety was our catering. I'm going to preface by saying that the catering, what I did for that is that I'm not really good with food. I eat like I'm 5, so I really don't know anything good about food. And on top of which, I'm not really good with like doing the research about places and prices and options and all that kind of stuff. So my wife, Jen, has offered to help in the things that I do, and I thought this was a really good opportunity to have her take on this particular role in helping me do this stuff. And Jen supports me very deeply in lots of the different things that I end up doing. And in fact, things like this, like taking over the basement of the house to, put on a silly kind of internet show every once in a while. So this is one of those opportunities, I think, or areas where I was like, okay, I'm going to give control over there and put the trust in her. And very much, none of the things I'm about to say are her fault at all. These are all 100% learning things for all of us involved in this, myself, Jen, and of course the caterers that we worked with. So we found this catering place, which is actually basically a deli that was down the block on Spring Street, right around the corner from where the venue was, through another catering, I think, service, basically like a larger service that you could find lots of different catering, or maybe no, I think it was actually through, might have been DoorDash actually, that was like this catering section. Now, if you go through DoorDash, obviously they're going to take a cut, so we're like, no, screw it, we're just going to go around DoorDash and go directly to the source and make arrangements with them. Well, we visited the location and we chatted with the manager at the time, and the manager gave us the owner's number, and we chatted with the owner. And the owner was, back and forth, mostly Jen doing the conversating, talking about, what the options are. And we were under the agreement that we were going to do a whole bunch of wraps, and then with the wraps there would be either some fruit or vegetables on the side or whatever. Just, we had a pretty good idea of the spread, and then what we were supposed to be getting, either for free or included or discounted. Just basically figuring out what that's going to look like. So Jen was staying on top of that and going back and forth with both the owner and the manager about, the kind of agreements that we were working with. And the week before, I was speaking with Jen. Jen was unclear about how much these folks knew. Like, one of the things that she was directing with the manager to kind of like do all the operational stuff was, oh, the owner said that we got XYZ for free, and she was confused that like that wasn't supposed to be free or whatever. So there was miscommunication in there for sure. And then when it was actually going to be delivered, the only things they had available to like show us as delivery was these like round aluminum like things, like almost like they're both like individual takeout containers. It was either gonna be plastic or aluminum, and we were like, that's weird for like catering, but we went with aluminum because it's better than plastic. So that's what we were choosing. But it was all just very much like we felt like they weren't understanding the requirements that we were putting forward. And in fact, we also had someone that attended that had a dietary restriction, a fairly significant one, where we wanted to make sure that this particular gluten-free, meals were going to be prepared wholly separately from any of the ones that had, gluten in them, right? And when we were trying to explain it to them, they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna, prepare, put them separately and deliver them separately." And I was like, "I don't know if you completely understand that this needs to be done separately." So for the individuals that had those dietary restrictions, we ended up actually going to a separate place and ordering separately that dealt with that kind of thing more regularly. That we were confident we are going to understand that. So, and that's just kind of something that I want to like underscore here is that when folks were wanting to join this event and paying for tickets, there is a survey in the beginning that like tries to understand what you're all about. And one of those things that we ask is, how could we make this experience special for you? And this person who put in the dietary restriction, we absolutely 100% were paying attention to that and catered to that. So if there's something in here that we can potentially, make this experience special for, that's what we want to hear, and really make improvements. So anyway, we weren't really like confident with the caterer. Like we didn't know if we were going to get the stuff on time. And actually, that's mostly because when I went down in person to drop off the check for payment, I asked them. I said, "Hey, do you have all the information? Like, do you have the date, the time, the location?" They're like, "No," and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like like it didn't hit me at the time because I was just like, "Oh, let me just give it to you," and I wrote it down on like a coffee cup holder thing. I was just like, again, in the moment, I was just like, let's just get it done. But then stepping back, I was like, this is so unprofessional, right? Because like my expectation in this catering situation is like you would effectively place an order, you get an invoice that says, okay, this is what the order is going to be about, you put a deposit in there, and then on that there's documentation that says, okay, here's what's going to go down, right? In fact, for the videographer, that's exactly what I got a whole call sheet and effectively contract, so to speak, that said this is what is included. I guess when you go with these mom and pop kind of locations, you're not going to get that kind of level of organization that I would have preferred here. So I was really nervous about, will I get the food, because I wrote this on like basically a throwaway piece of paper. Um, you know, that was the thing that I was most worried about. I wasn't really worried about the quality of the food. Uh, I was more worried about, will I even have food? So Jen and I was talking about that and thinking about like, okay, Murphy's Law stuff. What are we going to do in the event that we find out that there's no food? Like, so we had different options about, okay, let's go to the store and pick up a whole bunch of stuff. Let's potentially order some pizza and just explain to people what's going on. Just like lots of different things. Luckily, the food did arrive, and in fact, it arrived on platters, which was exactly what we were hoping for in the beginning of this whole thing. And from the feedback that we got with the folks that were in the room, everyone really loved the food, which was really great. So it all worked out at the end with the amount of like frustration, anxiety, uncertainty, all of that stuff that was happening. It actually really worked, and in fact, we had too much food. We actually had to kind of get rid of like basically an entire platter of food. It sucked in terms of the money spent, so to speak. But yeah, so due to the trying to figure out the price for the food and some of the situation with videographer, we operated at a loss for this particular event, which is totally fine because this is the first one we're learning, and I kind of expected that for this particular event, which was fine. So one other additional thing of anxiety that I had was people. I wanted to have 40 people as the cap for this first event. We ended up having 25 registered, and I think 23 people ended up playing, which was not bad. We had a nice sized room, nice intimate room. So I think all of that worked out in particular. For the first event, I actually, because, it was a big deal for me for people who are just joining and not knowing what they're about to join, I ended up writing handwritten thank you notes to every single person who attended last night. And I also gave them a small gift. It's like a conversation dice that you can like start conversations if you don't know what to say. It's kind of like aligned with the prompting thing that we were doing for the night. So everyone got one of those. And additionally, the folks that went to the first event will also get a 10% discount for the next event, which will be August 3rd. So look out for that. It'll be posted very soon. But yeah, just a big thank you for all of that. Plus, of course, the food and drink that were there. We also got too many drinks. We have a whole bunch of Joritos that are probably still sitting at Brain Station today. That I really enjoy Joritos, but it looks like that the seltzer hit a lot harder. So we're definitely going to make some adjustments in all of that in the future. Speaking of that, we'll probably actually stay with this caterer now that we understand what the relationship is at this point and how we're going to operate and what the expectations are. We'll probably, try to figure out the math to reduce the amount of food because we don't want to waste any food. And, just again, kind of vibe check, based on what we saw last night and what we're going to be doing in a few weeks again. So, additionally, big thanks to Brain Station for giving us the venue to host. Really helpful there. A big shout out to Jack and Jessica and Sarah, who all helped that night setting up and also helping out with the projector and just like everything that was there. Really made the event special and just, overall great team behind the folks over there. Big thanks to them as well. All right. So the event kind of laid out with like the first half hour from 6:30 to 7 is effectively what I call cocktail hour, but there's no cocktails. It's just like mingling around and networking and stuff like that. This particular event, because a lot of the people that I am relatively close with in the space were there. A lot of these folks were actually extroverts. So there was a lot of really good connections that were happening in there. And I think a lot of people ended up meeting people that they didn't know about and seeing people that they've seen before. So it was a really nice, intimate setting. And I hope that, it shows a little bit more about the connections that could be made there. You may notice in the video that there were no name tags. We will most likely have name tags for following events. The reason why we didn't have name tags in this particular event is that I didn't want to necessarily name anyone in the videography. So I wanted to kind of keep that a little bit more anonymous, but just see that there are real people, of course, in this place. They're not computer generated. But yeah, for later events, there'll be name tags. And in fact, we're going to do something a little fun with the name tags too. Stay tuned for that. All right, so from 7 to 8 was the actual playing in the game room, or I guess the conference room, so to speak. And before we start the game, effectively, we have some housekeeping that we do. So there's the ability to connect to the Wi-Fi, where I have like a QR code you could just scan, or you connect to the Wi-Fi really fast. And then we talk about, the facilities, basically where the restrooms are, where the exits are. If you have any problems to, reach out effectively to Jen, because I'm going to be trying to host this thing, that you're going to be playing on your phone. And a couple of other little items that I need to remember to say, which is going to be a big highlight of some of the retro that I need to pay attention to for future games. Because after basically plugging Brain Station, which, speaking of Brain Station, there's 2 events this week that I do have some effectively free tickets to if you folks are interested. I have to post about it. But after plugging Brain Station, it's time to start the game. So at that point, I put my fun jacket on and I do this kind of, game show-like opening, which I still haven't remembered entirely yet, like I do with Wireframe. I have to kind of get into the swing of that for sure. But then we started the games. So the games work very similar to Jackbox TV, if you've ever played that stuff, where you basically have this kind of like projector or TV screen, and everyone's on their phones. You're going to answer the questions on your phone, right? So I would choose a game. There'll be a QR code to join the room. So you could just, use your camera, you go to the room. And the way that the system works is that as long as you signed up on the Luma with that email address, you'll be able to get into the game. If you're not connected with the Luma, then you can't play the game. And this was a situation for an individual that ended up coming to the event, because I went to Brain Station on Friday for a Figma event and was absolutely hugely plugging Undefined, because that's going to be where I will be on the following Monday. And I realized in all of the conversation that I was having that I didn't necessarily disclose that there was, tickets that to be purchased. I was saying folks to go to the Luma to find out more information, and at that point you would see that there were tickets. But this individual just kind of showed up to Brain Station. And didn't realize that there were tickets. So, a little bit of a miscommunication there. But they were not able to play the game because they didn't pay to play effectively. So this is something that I was considering in designing the show, was that maybe there would be tiers where you would pay, more to play, to be involved with the whole thing. Meanwhile, there would be a smaller ticket, a less expensive ticket, just to like be in the room and see how it works, like just kind of like almost like audit, do I want to be a part of this? I ultimately scrapped that just from a complexity standpoint, but we'll talk a little bit more about feedback later, where there's an opportunity to reintroduce something like it, so we'll get to that. But anyway, the first game that we played was a game that what I called Lost in Translation, and effectively, I got this idea from actually an Instagram post where this person was like saying, "Here's some alternatives of tech phrases that we say all the time, like building the plane while flying it." So I want to like get a little bit of that kind of idea, whereas like, what's a tech phrase that you hear all the time in your daily kind of work that you're like over it, like you just like triggered by. So I had people try to like figure out what that was. Then the next way was basically like, okay, well, that's a trigger, the word that you're triggered by, or the phrase. Now take the phrase of your neighbor, which is just delivered to you, and now try to say the same thing in different words. So, like, for example, in like building the plane while flying it, maybe it's like mowing the lawn while sewing it, like something like that. Maybe use something of your own hobbies to like shift it in the right direction, right? Then this is where we had a problem. Basically, the next prompt was you kind of voting on if the original and the new version kind of make sense or not. Like, could you pass it off as like, this is what, does it, like, do you like with what the translation was? And this is where folks were going to basically Tinder swipe. You agree or disagree, which one, you liked or not. And the results of that were all, well, garbled. Unfortunately, both from a data perspective and from a visualization perspective. So in that particular chart, you would have seen that basically what happened was every individual person basically just kind of like voted once effectively, and all of the charting, like all of the different responses were like all there and either had just 1 or 0 on it. It was just what a mess. And that really threw me off my game. It might not have necessarily looked it, and that's only because of lots of years of practice of knowing when things definitely go wrong and having to just go with the punches. But at the time where the data visualization is happening, there is an opportunity on the player devices to put in feedback about why you answered in a particular way. So I actually completely forgot about that particular part of the experience, that you can like, kind of provide more feedback and more insight about why you answered that way there. But yeah, it was really hard to kind of go over the results on that. I was very kind of disappointed myself. But I tried to make some fun out of it, of course, because it's front end development and CSS going crazy. It's just like, okay, well, it's undefined, right? It's kind of on brand, so to speak. So moving through that game, there's some other things that I won't spoil the game too much, but there's some other things that we do with that data to kind of explain what's going on in there. But yeah, we had that was a good kind of first round of getting the gist of what was going to go on. The next game that we played is very similar to Drawful, just again tech related. So it was all about like drawing an icon. So again, not to like spoil what that game is all about, because I actually have now changed it slightly based on what we saw. Effectively, that game completely crashed halfway through. And the reason why that crashed is because of the service that I'm using to send the messages back and forth between players and such has a 64 kilobyte limit for the message. Now, when you're sending data URIs to represent these images, that could be very large very quickly. So that's effectively what happened there. Is that once those images were trying to be sent around, they weren't actually being sent around, and things were maybe not so silently failing. Luckily, we were able to actually see all of the images at the end because of the report that we show. So we have the report that's at the end, and you could see all the images. The side note about the report, by the way, since I'm talking about it, is that I didn't actually have an opportunity to save any of the reports this time around. Mostly because that many of the results were skewed and not representative. So I felt like, okay, let's not send you bad results. I'm just going to go ahead and make this as again an experiment of like how this is supposed to go down. These will not be the only times we play these games, by the way, and in fact, I really want to give the Drawful like one another chance, probably for the next upcoming one, because people really enjoyed that one in particular. And then the third one that we did was a very new game that I made, I think last week in particular, because I was thinking about superheroes. So there's this game about superheroes that's like trying to figure out what superhero you would like to hire for your team and how they would, help you out in particular. And I did get the bright idea on Sunday, but I didn't actually execute it, to have the heroes actually go against each other in the verses, almost like a quiplash kind of thing. But I decided not to do that because that would actually, I think, introduce a lot more complexity that I wasn't ready for to introduce the day before the event. So I was like, I can make new games with like the infrastructure that I have right now, but not new infrastructure for new kinds of games. And we'll get to some of the versus stuff in a minute because there's some ideas there. So played those three games. Again, a lot of the details of that were all a little bit mangled, unfortunately. And since then, I've actually fixed those bugs. So I'm looking forward to getting proper data displayed at this point. And the idea was to actually only play three games. But after the three games, I realized that we had some time for a fourth. So I was able to do another game, which is basically talking about how you spend your time during the week. A lot less on the kind of wacky, silly kind of questions that are related to tech, and more grounded in like how you actually spend your week. Is it, building? Is it in meetings? Is it in something else? And kind of like learning how that was all about. So I think that was nice too, especially since I think at the end there was a question about what would you tell the person who's managing your time, and there's a lot of really cool responses that came out of that that the place really enjoyed. So we made it through the event, and at the end of the event, there was some networking that happened afterwards. And in fact, we had a couple of testimonials that some folks did on camera, which are going to be really helpful for the sizzle to just get some people, again, excited about going to the event. And then we kind of did an impromptu kind of go to the bar and talk about it and talk about other stuff that we're doing, right? Just a kind of little hangout thing, because we have to leave the venue, Brain Station, by 8:30 just to do a wrap-up cleanup kind of situation. But there was lots of people who still wanted to talk, so we all kind of went down the block to a bar to just hang out, have a good time, and also talk to me about some of the feedback. So let's talk about some of the feedback that I got that I want to kind of address. So the first thing that I want to address is something that I felt during the game that was awkward, that I absolutely was like, I need to solve for this. And the thing that I need to solve for is the idea that there are people that are in the room that are going to answer fast, and it's going to be people that are in the room that answer slow. And because I want everyone to feel included, I want the people who are answering more slowly to have an opportunity to answer, right? I don't want them to feel left out, especially in this first one, right, where who knows what's going to happen. But I definitely don't want anyone to feel left out. So I was waiting quite a while in many of these games, especially the open-ended ones where you're just kind of like having to think of an answer, while other folks who are really quick We're kind of just waiting around and not having anything to do. So some people would just like, go up and go, to the restroom or get another, drink or, basically go on their phones and do other things. And I felt like that was really awkward in lots of different ways for, even the people who are just like waiting and they know that they're like everyone's, waiting for them or whatever. So I'm I got a lot of feedback about that, about, how to potentially handle that. And the answer for that is probably going to be twofold. The first thing that we're going to do now is that in the game, remember I was talking about how there's this spot where we're doing the data viz and there's an area to say like why you answer this particular way. So I'm going to move that. That's going to like be the insights module. And after every single prompt where you're, kind of asked to put in something to contribute to the data, after that prompt and submitting it, you're going to get an insight prompt directly after that. That's completely optional. And that insight prompt isn't going to be related to the data that we see during the game. It'll be included as some anecdotes for the report after the game. Okay. And at least in that particular way, there's a little bit more for those people that have answered quickly for them to provide more context about why they answered. So that's one of the things that we're going to help in terms of like making it so that they have more to do because they're going to have more, I guess, feedback potentially. And again, completely optional. Now, for the opposite side, we have the folks that are potentially taking a lot longer than we would like. So in this particular case, I'm going to effectively take a note from the Jackbox games, which have timers, right? So there is a timer for all of those things just to keep the game moving, and I think that is a reasonable thing to do. So I haven't yet decided if it's going to be a like explicit timer or implicit timer. That basically just means, am I going to show you the amount of time that you have with numbers, or am I going to show you with a progress bar that like, as it's coming down or whatever. Haven't really decided which one is best yet. I'm going to go through some research to see what makes the most sense in that particular case. But that's something that we will be adding into the games just to like keep things moving. And also help me in my own timing, because seeing that we got 4 games completed, it might be really helpful just to see in terms of the timing, like, can I just, simmer on a particular slide for a little while longer, right? Especially for like data visualization stuff. And this is another piece of feedback, in fact. There's a couple of data visualizations that I've included that are these card flips, which basically like kind of hide the result until we show it and then we start like talking about it. And in many of the games I would only show a few of them just to again like feel like I need to keep things moving. But I got a lot of feedback about wanting to see all of the things because like people who did like hard work, so to speak, in whatever that response was, would like to see theirs up there somewhere so that other people could see it. And in some cases, I didn't flip their card, so it wasn't shown. And I totally have empathy for that, where you like really want to contribute to the game, but then I don't show the thing that you contributed. Like that's not great, right? So in the card reveal module, I now will have a button that allows me to reveal everything so that we could see all the things, and then maybe we can even pick out some things from the ones that we've all seen there of just being like, oh, that's a really cool one, and we'll pull that one down, individually. But I have to figure out what the timing for that too is because like, do we need to go through all 25? Probably not, especially if there's more people. Like that's what I was basically trying to solve for is like when you have 40 people in the room, we can't go through all 40 answers. We're going to pick and choose which ones, but we want to be able to see all of them like we do with some of the other data visualizations. So we're going to go ahead and solve that. In fact, the button's already been prepared already. That was a quick vibe code sesh. So those are some of the improvements that are certainly going to be in the next event. One of the other things that I got in terms of feedback was that I heard that people wanted to do some competition. And in fact, they were like these kind of organic teams that were kind of coming up already, because while some of the faster folks were like waiting, they were kind of also like sharing, oh, what did you say, what did you say, oh, I agree with that, blah blah blah. And it's a really interesting dynamic. And I think in the event that I put in this versus kind of quiplash kind of scenario, there's a competitive thing that can come out of that. I don't necessarily know that I want to introduce teams where there's like a clear defined winner. That's not the essence of what I'm trying to get here from like an individual standpoint. Like I don't want to necessarily feel like an individual has won, or like even a group of individuals like that those individuals are better than another one necessarily. Like I have to be very careful about that um in here, because some people are competitive and that's what they enjoy, but I do want this to be fun, and I also want this to be a learning experience more so than the competitive thing. So I'm being very careful about that. If you do have feedback about what that might look like, you could absolutely send me that feedback. I'm really interested to know how we could, of course, make the show better and the event better. I'm trying to think of anything else that was top of mind in terms of feedback of improvements, other than, of course, like again, the data visualization is breaking because yeah, such is life in vibe coding. Um, I think those are the major things of areas of improvement for sure. Yeah, yeah. But other than that, I think I got a lot of positive feedback from folks over the course of the night. And yeah, I'm excited to do it again, but I'm also excited to not have to do it for a little while because of all the anxiety that was happening before that. I'm thankful that I've found this shoot day company to do other projects maybe later on, which were again fairly reasonable, all things considered, and that we have some catering that's actually going to work out, which was really good. Um, so I'm really looking forward, all things considered, of things that are hiccups of the game. I think I'm really looking forward to the next one. I think it was an overall really positive experience on my side, as much as the anxiety was between all the different facets that are out of my control. I think everyone really came together and supported me, but also supported each other in getting together outside on a Monday, which someone was talking about, like making Monday fun is really cool. Like as a tagline. I mean, I don't want to necessarily pigeonhole myself to go ahead and only be doing on this on Mondays, but that's effectively when the venue's available. But it's also something to be said about there's lots of events that are just on other days that aren't Monday. Like you usually don't have tech events on Monday because people are like, oh no, Mondays. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the thing that just like breaks out, like everyone knows, hey, Undefined's on Monday. Like maybe that's the thing. I don't know. But let me know what you think. I would love to know what you think about the game. If you were there, absolutely give me the feedback. And if you're interested in being a part of the game, you could absolutely go to undefined.ds.house and subscribe to the Lumen calendar. It's the big button that's on there, which in fact I'll definitely need to change. I will most likely also make a blog post on the blog about some of the stuff that I talked about on Wireframe, just to document it so I could refer back to it, because I'm already potentially forgetting things about stuff that's happened. So I want to make sure that I document it and I can go ahead and come back and also kind of show the progression of how this event is coming to be. I think that's going to be really cool. I think that's it for the event. Oh, one more thing. I brought it all the way down here, so what the heck? There's merch. So my wife was wearing one of the shirts last night, but this is the other one. You can see there, it has the word Undefined there on the right-hand side. My wife was wearing the white shirt, which is more of like a square kind of motif with the logo, which is aligned with how the stickers are also shown. So you can actually get any of the merch at store.ds.house. And there's a couple of different items that are there that could be interesting to you. So consider it. I think the logo is really cool. I designed it in this particular way just because I mentioned this on LinkedIn last week, that Undefined is really just like trying to describe like you are always learning and there's always something to learn. So there's parts of your world that are undefined, and you want to define them. And that's what the object of all the games are too, is to like define your world effectively. So I wanted to like promote that through this logo and putting the logo on places. And I think this is a way to do that. So okay, that's it. I promise. But tune in Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week. We're going to have a guest every single day for the rest of the week. Tomorrow is Caroline Horn. On Thursday is Michael Warren. And then on Friday, Dan Abramoff. I'm looking forward to seeing you tune in on those days. But until then, that's our show. Thank you so much for watching. But before you go, please help out the show by hitting that goodness gracious, the like and subscribe button just to get notified the next time that we go live. And feel free to continue this conversation. Give me feedback on Undefined and all that kind of good stuff. Maybe even ask some questions for folks on our official Discord, discord.ds.house. There's the link over there on the bottom. Play nice in those comments, and I'll see you on the internet. Bye.